Divine and royal greetings, family. I am Shayola Benta.
I am Priya Bhagat, and this is Currency Conversation with Sisters. Welcome.
Hey, welcome. So today's conversation is the currency of knowing. So we will give it a few moments for people to come on, and we're gonna get into the conversation. Of course, we're gonna show a video first, just to put things into perspective. And while we're doing that, I was just sharing with Mother Priya behind the scenes that while I was out and about over the strong end, I had asked a young lady who was checking me out if she looked for ways to make money while she's sleeping. And she looked at me very in a perturbed way.
The world changed
And
on
she
August
said,
15th,
hold on one
1971.
moment. Let me go back.
So when I look at the world, I say, why is it screwed up? Why is there such a gap between the rich and the
I can't even
poor?
go back.
Why is
One
real estate in
moment.
a bubble? You can trace much of it back to 50 years ago.
Okay, hold on.
The world changed on August 15th, 1971. So when I look at the world, I say, why is it screwed up? Why is there such a gap between?
Whew. So now we know what we're going to be talking about. But I just wanted to say, she looked at me, in a way that was like, what? And she actually said, no, why would I want to do that? But then Mother Priya said, well, she probably heard, like, I have to actually work, perhaps while I'm sleeping, or give up my sleep time, to work. And I was thinking that was so me. You know, I didn't know that you can make money while you're sleeping. And now we're in a space where we can. So, the whole idea of today's recording is we are moving from a belief system, right, into a knowing system. Now, of course, there are things that we believe, and we believe them because we have faith in them. But the knowing aspect is the factual, the scientific, or even the spiritual behind a thing. Like it's a knowing. So before we really get into this video, which is just shy of 10 minutes, Mother, do you have something that you would like to add?
Um, yeah, the knowing it could be two parts. It's the physical knowing, and it is the spiritual knowing. So
Hmm.
hopefully we can talk about both.
Okay, we will most
But,
definitely talk about the differences
mm,
in knowing. So let's just take a look at this video. And the sentiment here is gold, right? Which we should also have. Precious metals, silver. We should have a diversified portfolio of it all. But the knowing is the importance. Here we go.
Between the rich and the poor. Why is real estate in a bubble? You can trace much of it back to 50 years ago, August 15th, 1971.
The value of the dollar on international exchanges would collapse because we have these record trade deficits. I mean, the last trade deficit we had, all-time record high, we're running trade deficits of about $1.2 trillion a year. It is enormous. But the only reason we could do this is because the world will take dollars for their stuff. But if they go back to a gold standard, they ain't going to take dollars for their stuff. We're going to have to give them gold, which we don't have, or we're going to have to produce stuff, which we can't because we don't have the factories. We don't have the infrastructure, the labor force, the supply chains. So the dollar is going to collapse. And what's going to happen is all of these products that Americans take for granted are on the shelves when they want to buy something. They're all going to be gone because we're not going to be able to afford them. I mean, they're going to be too expensive for Americans to buy. So the entire American standard of living is going to collapse. Now, it's not going to make that big a difference for a lot of the other countries outside the US because they don't issue reserve currencies. So, if you're living in New Zealand, for example, the New Zealand dollar isn't a reserve currency. So if you want to import something, you've got to export something. And so people in New Zealand have to earn dollars. We don't have to earn dollars. We just print them. Well, now the people in New Zealand will start earning gold instead of dollars. But the change for America is huge because we used to be able to print dollars. we can't print gold. We have to earn gold just like everybody else.
Peter Schiff, CEO of Euro-Pacific Capital, went full-on doomsayer mode with predictions of the US dollar and the American economy collapse. He joined Rich Dad Poor Dad radio show hosted by Robert Kiyosaki and Kim Kiyosaki. He went on the narrative that the mainstream thinks that the gold standard failed. Peter Schiff explained that the gold standard didn't fail, rather we failed to stay on the gold standard. One of the features of the gold standard is that it keeps governments honest. It imposes monetary discipline. And this is the reason that many of America's most influential people opposed fiat paper money. The problem with paper money is governments can simply print more of it, but gold holds the power of scarcity and cannot be printed out. Peter Schiff criticized Richard Nixon for lifting the dollar from the gold standard because he thinks that the US economy thrived under a gold standard for more than a century. But as politicians wanted to expand the government, they had to devalue the dollar against gold. But these expansions caused the US inflation pressure. In August 1971, Richard Nixon ordered Treasury Secretary John Connally to uncouple gold from its fixed $35 price and suspended the ability of foreign banks to directly exchange dollars for gold. The US government had the choice to raise taxes and cut spending, but Richard Nixon didn't want to do any of that. And that's exactly what Nixon did. Watch the video completely to know Peter Schiff and Robert Kiyosaki's rationale for their narrative of the dollar collapse. Before that, take a second to smash the like and subscribe button if you haven't done it yet. Enjoy watching.
The world changed on August 15th, 1971. So when I look at the world and say, why is it screwed up? Why is there such a gap between the rich and the poor? Why is real estate in a bubble? You can trace much of it back to 50 years ago, August 15th, 1971.
So on August 15th, 1971, that is when Nixon closed the gold window. Of course, when he closed it, he said it was just temporary, but it's been 50 years and it hasn't reopened. But what you spoke about FDR in 1933 is true, because that's the year when the government made it illegal for Americans to own monetary gold. So American citizens could not take their Federal Reserve notes back to the Federal Reserve and get real dollars, which were made of gold. All they could do was negotiate, circulate the Federal Reserve notes. But if you were not American, if you lived outside the United States, you were still able to take your Federal Reserve notes to the Federal Reserve and actually get paid the gold that the notes promised to pay. And so that continued up until 1971. And basically what was happening in the late 1960s, early 1970s, was we started to run very big deficits in the 1960s to pay for the war in Vietnam, to pay to go to the moon, to pay for the war on poverty, and all sorts of government programs. They called it guns and butter, and we had both, yet we didn't pay for either. And so we ran these big deficits, and the Federal Reserve was then monetizing the deficits. Now we call it QE. They hadn't thought of that word back then, but that's what they were doing. So the Fed was doing QE to monetize all this government spending. We didn't have the gold, and our foreign creditors were suspicious that we didn't have enough gold to meet our obligations. So they started to show up at the gold window with their Federal Reserve notes asking for the gold. Well, we didn't have enough. And so we ended up defaulting on our obligations, because really Federal Reserve notes were promises to pay gold, and we defaulted on that promise. And so anybody who says the US government has never defaulted on an obligation, that's not true. That was a massive default in 1971. And, we've been on this fiat-based monetary system ever since. And I think this system is now on the verge of an implosion. And I think we're going to see this, relatively soon, where the dollar now collapses and the world returns to the gold standard just without the dollar. Because when the world was on a dollar standard after Bretton Woods, it was because the dollar was not only backed by gold, but redeemable on demand into gold. And after we defaulted, the dollar, lost a lot of value in the 1970s, about 2/3 of its value relative to the Deutschmark, the yen, the Swiss franc. But it continued to serve as the reserve, and it's a reserve currency to this day. I think that status is what's in jeopardy
if you're only a kid, why are you so adamant about gold? I mean, something got into you.
Well, gold is real money. And, my father taught me about gold a long time ago. In fact, before we went off the gold standard, my father was one of the few people who actually testified in front of the Senate Committee on Money and Banking against going off the gold standard. And my father was the only one that said that if we went off the gold standard, the price of gold would go up and that the value of the dollar would go down and that we'd have lots of inflation. All of the other government witnesses, including the then Secretary of the Treasury and the then head of the Federal Reserve, they all said that if we went off the gold standard, the price of gold, which was about $35 an ounce at the time, they said the price of gold would fall. They thought the dollar was supporting gold instead of the other way around. So they were talking about how great the economy was going to be if we can only remove the shackles of the gold standard. And my father was the only one who testified and got it right because he laid out exactly what was going to happen in the 1970s. And it happened exactly the way he said, and the exact opposite of what the Secretary of the Treasury and the Federal Reserve said. And you know what? The Secretary of the Treasury and the Federal Reserve head are just as incompetent now, maybe even more so than they were back then. They have no idea the damage that they have unleashed from their policies, especially the mistakes that they've made since COVID. I mean, the Federal Reserve has done everything wrong since COVID. And despite the fact that everybody is praising them for what they did, remember, everybody praised them for all the bailouts and all the stimulus following 2008. And they praised them when they bailed everything out after the dot-com bubble popped. But all those were policy mistakes. What the Federal Reserve should have done following the outbreak of COVID was withdraw money from circulation, allow interest rates to go up. Because the problem with COVID, and I said this at the time, was a supply problem. People were leaving their jobs. Companies were shutting down. People were staying home. They weren't working. They weren't producing goods. They weren't providing services. So we had a lot less stuff to buy. What the Federal Reserve needed to do was reduce the money supply so that money supply went down with goods supply. Instead, they did the opposite. They flooded the economy with money. They printed all this money and sent it out to everybody. So what happened? We increased demand while we were decreasing supply. That's why you're seeing this huge increase in consumer prices right now. The value of the dollar on international exchanges would collapse because we have these record trade deficits. I mean, the last trade deficit we had, all-time record high, we're running trade deficits of about $1.2 trillion a year. It is enormous. But the only reason we could do this is because the world will take dollars for their stuff. But if they go back to a gold standard, they ain't going to take dollars for their stuff. We're going to have to give them gold, which we don't have, or we're going to have to produce stuff, which we can't because we don't have the factories. We don't have the infrastructure, the labor force, the supply chains. So the dollar is going to collapse. And what's going to happen is all of these products that Americans take for granted are on the shelves when they want to buy something. They're all going to be gone because we're not going to be able to afford them. I mean, they're going to be too expensive for Americans to buy. So the entire American standard of living is going to collapse. Now, it's not going to make that big a difference for a lot of the other countries outside the US because they don't issue reserve currencies. So, if you're living in New Zealand, for example, the New Zealand dollar isn't the reserve currency. So if you want to import something, you've got to export something. And so people in New Zealand have to earn dollars. We don't have to earn dollars. We just print them. Well, now the people in New Zealand will start earning gold instead of dollars. But the change for America is huge because we used to be able to print dollars. We can't print gold. We have to earn gold just like everybody else. And that's a game changer for Americans. But it's also a game changer for people who have savings, people who, are hoping to retire. If you think you're going to retire on a bunch of dollars, you got another thing coming. It's the dollars that are going to retire, not you. You're going to keep on working unless you take action now to divest yourself of US dollars and dollar-denominated assets and buy some real things.
Before you leave, we have an
Wow. So before we come back into full frame, let's just keep a comment that really stood out to me in mind. The change for America is huge right now. So I'm going to do the plugs now. And again, we will come back in full screen. So directly after this, or somewhat thereof, 5 o'clock, we have Welcome to the Wealth Transfer Drive Time with Brother Eric Teray Muhammad. That is every day, well, every Monday through Friday at 5 p.m. Eastern Standard Time on the Eric Teray Facebook page. That is a really, really great platform to become educated. That's what we're doing. That's what we're working on. That's why we continue to go live, not to sell you a thing, but to educate ourselves and you on what is happening out there in them streets. And if you would like to learn more about what we do and why we do it, we have a week of events 3 and 4 times a day. This organization, Wealth Builders Worldwide, is spearheaded by none other than our own Dr. Tyrone Best, who is the author of the Dream Chaser Manifesto, Surviving in a Jungle of Non-Dreamers. And there to the right of the screen is Mr. and Mrs. Michael Dalco, who are blazing the trails, helping us to become educated, saving not only for ourselves, but for the families around us, which is quite amazing. Our next face-to-face meet, Planting Good Karma, is going to be held on the 20th of August at 4:30 p.m. at the Fairfield Henrico County Public Library. Feel free to come by. There is no fee for this education. This is a meet and gather so that we can really begin to not only share a plan, but help you to begin to mobilize one, right? We have all of the problems, but we do have just about all of the solutions. And finally, we're here on Mondays, Currency Conversations with Sisters, Mondays at 4 p.m. We hope that you continue to come back and vibe with us. So we are going to switch back over to our main frame. All right. So, Mother, what say you?
Yeah, the last statement, this is powerful. Everybody needs to see this. But the last statement about if you think you're going to retire off of dollars, it's the dollars that are retiring, and you need to, it's a dollar. So you need to divest in some real solid things. And that made a big, I wrote that down. That made a big imprint on me. But I was thinking, where was I in 1971? I
Where
was
were
just
you
going.
in 1971?
I was just going into high school. I was just going into high school. It was never high school. It was really low school because they didn't teach us anything about this, not at all.
Right.
And so yeah, 1971, I was just entering high school, and I was thinking, I never heard the word gold in my family. You heard money. Never heard the word gold. Like you say, gold is the real money. So if gold is the real money, then paper money is the fake. We've been dealing with fake money. We've been dealing
That's
with
actually a
monopoly money.
promissory note. It's a note.
It's a promissory note, yes. But it's fake. It's just monopoly money. That's all it is. That's all it is. And until the powers that be tell us, well, we're not using these notes anymore. We're going to switch over. They're making us believe that, hey, these promissory notes have, value. But they don't. They have no value. It was the gold that had the value. And that makes me think of the game rock, paper, scissors. Where rock trumps paper, scissors trump paper, rock being the gold, paper being the promissory note, and scissors just being the government,
That part. That
yeah.
part.
So there's a hidden message behind that game.
Wow.
Gold trumps money anytime, just paper money anytime. And another thing I thought of, why did Nixon at this time, take the gold standard off of, the dollar bill? Why did he do that? What was going on? They say, because they didn't have the gold.
Well,
They
go ahead. My
go ahead.
apologies.
No, but I was just thinking because I watched the video. I said, what was going on in the 70s? And I gotta always think conspiracy. I'm sorry, and I don't know whether that is the right word. But if you think we had just come off the civil rights movement,
Yep.
And so, we had the laws against, segregation, in schools, no segregation in schools, housing, employment, finances. Would you want Black people to get gold? Would you want Black people to get gold? I'm going to say that loud and clear. Now, I don't know whether this is a factor or not, but I know we play in a lot of factors why this government do the things they do. So if we were gaining all these rights and everything during the time, 60s and 70s, well, we're going to give you this, but we're not going to give you this.
Right.
So we got to change something. So, hey, that's just my thoughts. That is just my thoughts.
Come through with the fire. Come through.
But we are living on the illusion.
Yes.
And we want people to know this monetary note, it's not promising you anything. Nothing what. So the banks know it, the government know it. Why don't we know it? Why don't we know this? And given I didn't know it. I didn't know it.
I didn't know it.
I was a part of this program, this illusion. As long as I was spending the money, it must be good. It must have value. But that's the deep illusion they got us under. And that's the illusion. And this is this money. Right. It's like the storehouse is empty, but we can't tell them. The storehouse is empty, but we can't tell the people, because we have to create this illusion. And that's what we're living under now.
Right. And we'll continue to live under it until more of the people begin to educate themselves, right? Because it's like, if I know better, will I really do better? And the fact, the dollar is no longer a reserve currency. The house literally is on fire. And there is nothing, right? Because this has been happening since 1971. Here we are in 2022, and we are farther away. It was supposed to be a temporary thing, right? And we're still here. I mean, super side note, I didn't know gold was money until 2019. I had never heard the term. And even if you look in financial encyclopedias, gold is not listed at all.
Right. It's like, But if you think through all history, gold was a thing.
But people call it a relic. Ain't nobody getting gold. But that's not true. People that aren't educated aren't getting gold. People think that think that they don't have access aren't getting gold, silver, even crypto. In this stage of the game, it's like crypto, precious metals, commodities, but we cannot always be the consumer, right? Because we're just consuming. We're not producing anything. Of course, there's going to be, that imbalance. I love one of the speakers said, the gold standard didn't fail us. We failed the gold standard, right? So, when we think about, okay, well, what was going on in 1971? As you said, you're coming off of the civil rights movement. There are a lot of, Afro people who are feeling empowered and liberated. It's like, oh no, we got to send them somewhere, right? But we need the money to fund these wars. So if the dollar is not pegged to anything, worthwhile, then we can just keep printing to no end. We can buy as America has the largest military complex, and
Yes.
it's like what do we actually need all of this militia for, right? Because if we're living righteously, I'm not trying to steal what you got. You're not trying to steal what I got. We all thrive and we good. But if you're stealing and plundering and raping and murdering everywhere you go, well, then you probably would need security.
Mm-hmm. And remember what they say: the gold kept government honest.
It did. It was collateral. You had to account for it. Now there's
Right.
no accounting.
There's
When
no
the
accounting.
C thing first came out, shortly thereafter, it was all this bailout and stimulus money. And everybody was like, I want my stimulus check. Y'all,
Yeah.
no.
So what does that make you think? That I've heard it. Well, we have money. We have money. Where's our reparation? We have money. I heard that.
Mm.
No, it's an
No,
illusion.
it is an illusion.
Wow.
It is
Yeah.
an illusion. So, I mean, we don't know all of what it will take for others to say, you know what, let me give this a listen. Let me really start to understand what's going on, because how long can we really stay asleep? It's just like, what else do we need to see? It's like the house is on fire, literally, but we're like, no, I'm gonna stay. But
Yeah.
stay for what?
Yeah.
If the house was there and we knew what was going on in the house, that's different. But we know what's
Mm-hmm.
going on in the house, and we know that the house is on fire. So what are we staying for? What is
Yeah.
it that
But
we like to
people
see?
like watching a house on fire. They're hypnotized seeing a house on fire.
Mm.
So they can see something right in front of them and still don't see the truth of it. They
Now
just don't.
well, they say if you want to hide something from someone, you hide it in plain sight.
In plain sight.
Mhm.
Yeah.
And
And
they're doing a really good job with us, because with all of the distractions and the weather, adjustments, all the things that they're doing in the environment, people are not really thinking about what's my plan for next year, 10 years from now, generationally. They're thinking about, how am I going to get through the day? How am I
yeah.
going to get to the week, through the week?
Mm-hmm.
You know, but it's a real live question. Like, okay, y'all, we know that inflation is on the rise. Inflation is at 9% here. In Sri Lanka, it was like 50%. People went
Mm.
like, not 50%. Can you imagine everything just doubling in price? And it's just creeping up for us slowly. We may not have felt it as much as other countries, but we will, and okay, prices are going up. What is your plan to
But
supplement
yeah.
what is coming? What's the plan? 3, 4, 5, 6 jobs?
Right. And I still believe people are under this notion that America is still, the land of opportunity, that America is still a great country.
Mm.
They're still under that notion. Oh no, nothing's gonna happen to. But look, the quarantine proved that. The quarantine proved that it can happen to us.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
Businesses can shut down. People can lose their jobs. People can walk away from their job.
Mm-hmm.
I
Mm-hmm.
mean, if that didn't speak volume to people, and then you go back and you still thinking the same way. I know there are people out there that are not thinking the same way. They just need something. And
Right.
we have what they're looking for. We have the system that you're looking for. You don't have to go back into that program you call a job. And even if you're there, say, let your job finance your dream. Let the job work for you. Don't work for the job. Let the job work for you.
Mm.
That's what you have to do.
Mm-hmm. That is what you have to do,
Mhm.
because we can't, we can't continue to just exchange our time for money. So if you have a gig where you're, you selling things online, or you found a residual way of, that's great. That's great. Keep that. But I do believe that the
Yeah,
job can finance your future, your freedom, your, whatever it is that you're looking to do. But we actually have to look at it as an exit plan. Again, some
yeah,
people may say, well, I love my job. That's great. But what's your plan? Io was saying earlier today that she was speaking to a young lady. I wish she were here to explain it for herself. And she was saying that someone that she knew lost $10,000 in their 401k. So Io
mm,
basically, was, well, that's going to happen because the market is crashing. So she was like, well, what does that have to do with the 401k? So even in that space, it's just like we have these things, right? And we do not know why we have them. We don't know. And some people may be offended by the comment that I'm about to make. But if you really want to see a scam or a Ponzi scheme, you really have to look at your 401k. Look at it real good. Now, if you could lose 10,000 straight off the top, how are you going to recoup that? What are you going to do? What if that was the only thing that was in there? Now all of your savings are gone. Most people don't overstand 401ks, right? Somebody
right.
comes to the job through HR. They tell us these are the companies that you should look at. We don't really know because most of us are not trading. We're not into stocks. So we and I'll speak for myself. I didn't really know if they said, okay, well, this is a company that you should look into. It's kind of like, oh, okay. You don't know anything
Mhm.
about those companies. You don't know the owners. You don't know. But then when we introduce them to something like this, well, who owns it? Who runs it? What other businesses are they invested in? What do they do? Like, y'all, Mr. Dalco said yesterday, when you go to the bank, you go to the bank with the mindset that you have to give them your money to open an account. And once you sign the dotted line, the money that you once had is now theirs. And
Yes.
when the doors
Mhm.
close, they trade your money and make what they need to make 10 times over. But then when you come back to get your money, you only getting but 0.1 0.01%, interest on it. It just doesn't make sense. Like when you really
Yeah.
think about it, it just does not make sense. And it's hurtful because it's just like, dang, y'all been lying and
But that's
continue to lie.
yeah. But that shows you how programmed we are. And we just saw that tape, how messed up the government is, you
Mm.
know, dealing with gold, not having enough gold, printing out so much money, bailing out people and all of this. These are the
Breaking
people we're
obligations.
what? These are people we're trusting
Mm.
our money to with.
Mhm. Mentor
Come on.
Vibe said
Look,
open manipulation. Yes, indeed.
let's be truthful. If someone is messing up your money, you're gonna be pissed off.
Yes.
Come on, people. The government is messing you over, people. So why aren't you pissed? Messing with your money. So why aren't you pissed about it? Get real. Get
You know
some
why
real
they aren't
assets.
this? Because they don't think that there's anything they can do about it. Right? I mean, I'll be upset. I'll get mad. I'll get angry. But what you gonna do about it? Well, I don't really know.
Hmm.
But when you have someone saying, but I have something that you could look into. I've had people say, I'm good, or I don't need it. I'm already doing this. I am already doing that. And it's just like, what about everybody else? It just
Yeah,
blows my
that's
mind.
it. That's
It,
it. Yeah, yeah.
mm-hmm,
And
for,
that's one of the greatest laws, help someone else out, you help yourselves, go back and get someone else up, get someone else.
go back and get someone else. That's
Go
so
back
real.
and get, you
That
know,
is so real.
um, Harriet Tubman went back, what, 19 times? She didn't have to go back 19 times.
Did you say 19 times, mother?
Over 300 enslaved.
And they still didn't want to go. Like, nah, I'ma stay.
They don't want to go. So really, help those, you help yourself. I mean, it's one of the greatest laws. And we're in a position to fulfill that law. We're in a position to fulfill that law.
Yes, yes,
Yeah.
yes. Mentor Vibes, I hope I'm saying that right, says, sad to say, but it starts with conditioning. It's challenging to get people to break off an old way of thinking, and when that process begins, it takes time to adjust to the illusion. And that's so true. I mean, it's almost like, okay, you're in a deep sleep, you good, you in dreamland, you got your blackout shades, and you might be snoring, a little drool come through. But then someone comes, they open up the windows, they might even pour a little water on your face, and it's shocking, right? It does. It takes a moment to adjust to this new bright light in your face. But the honesty in it all is, we really don't have that kind of time. We really don't have the time for people to sashay into this new way. Now, I'm not saying that there isn't time to learn, but if we take in the slow walk, a lot of us won't survive this because we won't be prepared. We won't be prepared mentally. So you say, okay, well, if everything collapses and we have no communication or whatever the case may be, money still ain't gonna be no good, then what can you produce?
Mm-hmm.
What can you do that will be to the level of barter ability? If you had to eat perhaps once a day, are you mentally prepared for intermittent fasting? If you had to grow your own food, are you collecting seeds now? Are you testing the air within your space? There's so many things that we could be doing right now to help, but many of us are just like, you know what? Whatever's going to happen is going to happen.
Mm-hmm.
And then
But
we get
yeah, you're right.
Mhm.
I read the book Behold the Pale Horse. And one thing he said was, and this is what the government do in order to go to war. You have to create an enemy for the people. And you have to give that enemy a face so that people can be with you. So people, one, don't see the banks as an enemy.
Mm-hmm.
They
That's
don't.
mm-hmm.
And so that's why, in a sense, well, I'm not really against the bank. I just don't see them against me. I mean, that's one reason the civil rights movement worked and all, because they knew who the enemy was, or they knew who the antagonist was who was against them. They had a
Right.
faith, and everybody had that common, sense of, what they were fighting for. But they don't see the banks as an enemy.
Right.
They just don't. So they're not really ready, to change their way of thinking. They're not willing to, fight for, a different life. So yeah,
They're not
that's it.
willing to fight for a different life.
Mhm.
That's deep, because what is worth fighting for? Like, what would you actually fight for? As you were saying, all these rights are being passed, all of these holidays are being given, but on the other side, there are so many other things that are being taken away. And we are being lied to. Just today, the news was saying that the dollar is strong. So we were like, wait, stronger as it relates to
How is it strong if you go into the
right.
store?
It's stronger. Like, what are we talking about here? Because
Prices are high.
and it's something else though. Like, they straight lie to you to your face.
Turn
To
off
your
the news.
that is also true. That is also true. Because if you want to be lied to,
Hmm.
you better turn on that Prime TV and let it do what it do. but the currency of knowing, right? We are no longer in a space and time where we just don't know. Now, if you choose not to know, that's different, but stay over there because, that's the energy and vibration that we're not really checking for. At least I'm not. Again, let me speak for myself. We are in a space of educating ourselves and the right education, right? Because we can load up on a lot of the wrong things too. But we have to financially educate ourselves. In finances, politics, and religion, people don't want to talk about. Y'all better wake up. Wake up, because they are definitely leading to slaughter. I don't want to say sheep, but I just am grateful to come into someone to say, hey, did you know that gold was real money? No. Who even has gold? That's a weird question to ask someone who has no knowing. So we have what you need.
But but you remember they could get those gold teeth, the gold teeth in them.
This is true.
They knew about that.
Yes. And then like some of the neighborhoods will say, exchange your cash for gold. They don't say exchange your money for gold, right? Because you can't buy money. But that cash, exchange your cash for gold. And we went in and we gave them our grandparents' trinkets or our trinkets to get a little bit of cash. So we gave away the real money for the fake money, just to have the fake money in our hand.
And and why did they start having these places where you can come and sell your gold?
Because they know that the gold is the money. And they know that
gold is the money.
The rings and the chain. They said they're gonna bring all of that in. They're gonna give it.
Right in your face. They're telling you. Wake up. Mm. Yeah. Yeah, I mean that's the knowing. Like you say, the right education. And it's out here. You can't say, well, I don't know where to look. You know where to go to be educated. Don't take our word for it. Hey,
That's it. Don't take our word for it.
It's out here if you want to be educated about this. Yeah, if you want to be financially free.
Indeed. If you want to be or if you desire to be financially free, the education is key. I wasn't trying to rhyme there, but that definitely went together. No, but we are being encouraged and empowered to understand that education, patience, right? That time to adjust, as Mentor Vibes was saying, and integrity. That is how we will develop success in anything. You educate yourself on a thing, you give yourself time to learn it, and just make sure you stay true to that. You're going to be all right. But we can't keep buying into the lie. I have people tell, well, I'm trying to unplug from the matrix. How exactly are you doing that? If you have nothing saved, if you're not producing anything, how do you actually plan to do it? And can you share that plan with others? I am a rapper, low key. I got some bars. Hopefully gold bars.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But yeah, you hear people say that. It's almost like that's the I was like, that's the thing to say, I'm gonna unplug from the matrix. I'm gonna get off grid. I'm off grid. If you're still living in this country, you're not off grid. Okay? You need something to exchange for your living. Some money, some assets. You need that.
And you get to decide, like just having the control. I can remember when I first started my awakening, cable, all of that. I don't want none of it. I will now decide what I want to feed my mind with. And I just went to the library. I got a DVD player and I just looked at DVDs. I don't turn on the radio in the car. If it's not silence, I will play something that I desire to listen to, but I'm not going to arbitrarily just allow the TV to run. Like I don't even want that frequency in my cipher as much as I can control it. So the same thing with the technology space that we're moving into. You have to take control of it. But in order to control it, you have to be educated on it and stop regurgitating things that you hear other people say. Even the stuff that we're saying right now, don't take our word for it. Go and do the research for yourself. And maybe start with 1971, or you can start with 1913, which is when the creatures got together at Jekyll Island, which is a really good book, and this whole monetary system was devised. So educate yourself, educate, and don't run from it. The more we run from what it is that we're supposed to have, the greater it's like on our back. So as Mr. Best says, and he was speaking to me, if you have not a money problem, because you don't have money problems until you about $200,000, $300,000, $400,000, $500,000 in earning. If you have a cash flow problem, then you weren't taking the time to educate and execute, because we're in a space and time where all is being offered to us. And the only reason why it's not free is because we really won't do it, because we believe that nothing in life is for free, when the very things that are needed to survive in life are indeed free. But, all right, y'all. So we definitely went past a little bit, but, as we were saying, this was a powerful conversation because, the currency of knowing definitely is key. It's necessary. So please do not take our word for it. We want you to, it's a little late for this, but what the who? We want you to do your own research. And if you feel that you need a little assistance with overstanding, we are here. We are servant leaders here to do our best in helping you overstand what your plan could be. We are not financial advisors. We are not giving you financial advice. We are just very passionate and sharing with you what we're doing because it's working. Some people say, well, how long is it going to work? How long the banking industry going to stand up? Come on, y'all. Well, what happened to Blockbuster? Or what happened to the last company you were in? Or what happened? What happened? Y'all, let's stay in the present, okay? And educate ourselves. So, Mother, if you have any closing words, feel free and take us home.
I would say our greatest commodity is time, and time is ticking.
See y'all next week, 4:00, same time, same channel. Well, we know time is illusion, but y'all know what we mean. Y'all know what we mean. Peace.
Peace and blessings.